the most compelling hour in radio. That's what we call it because it is true. Good morning, Hawaii. You have entered in to the Maker of Kings radio program here on News Radio 830 KHVH. It is a delight to be with you, and I'll tell you what, we have one heck of a morning as always planned together. Facebook Live, you can see the crew, you can see the fellas in studio with us today. Wishing you aloha. Facebook Live, everybody with us, and I always start with Mr. Jim Keener. And Brother Jim, aloha to you.
Aloha and good morning. Thanks for having us today.
Oh, I'll tell you what, it is a pleasure. We have now, about how many shows have we?
I think 11 or 12.
Just number 12.
It is astounding because each and every week, it's like we're building this library.
Yeah.
And the fact that at makerofkings.com, and we also have archives as well, go to makerofkings.com, you'll be able to get ramped up with all that we've been doing.
Of course, yeah. We're happy to be part of this. We love the whole business aspect of and bringing it to the community, and we love being on your show.
Well, thank you so very much, Jim. And let's if you wouldn't mind, I'll have you do introductions this morning.
Okay,
please do.
To my right is Andrew Compean, my oldest son, and young entrepreneur, king in the making, going through the process and the trials and tribulations of a young entrepreneur. To my left, my youngest son, Nicholas, who is working in the company, and he has the service role, so he works in a specific area. And he has his own unique trials and tribulations that we'll discuss. To the left of him is Corey Cazares, the young champion here.
I'm putting in adoption paperwork on my own. He hasn't signed it yet,
He's
but
coming in.
yeah,
He's
it needs a
coming in.
wedding
Just a
signature.
phenomenal young man, full of ambition and great ideas. Just a real winner in his space, and we're looking to work together to build this Armor Home Warranty program.
And Corey, of course, is amazingly handsome. And I think that's probably one of the keys.
He's the
to his
fifth
success.
handsomest guy here. Yeah.
Absolutely so.
Hey,
Yeah.
I podium, or is it a 5-tier podium?
He's podium.
Let's be on bronze. He's nickel.
10.
All right, guys, it was nice being here.
Oh my gosh, I needed this. Thank you for that very much.
The heartbreak is palatable.
Oh, goodness gracious. Let's get started. We always like to go definition of terms. Maker of Kings. What's our mission, Jim?
Maker Kings is documenting the journey of these young entrepreneurs through this process and documenting the trials and tribulations, the ups, the downs, some of the things we do to counter some of the problems they're facing and to interface with the community on their problems and concerns as well. So overall, it's just it's a business advice program where we recap kind of what's going on in the world.
We have a lot on the agenda today, as we always do. We're going to jump into details. I want to get caught up. It's been a week since we've been together. Andrew, how was your week? Fill us in on developments, things that we should know about.
That was a great week. Actually, one of the new developments for this podcast or for this radio show is we're putting on SoundCloud and Spotify.
Excellent.
So you'll be able to get all all 11 of our previous episodes in your car.
Wow.
Excited for
So,
that.
so that's the new
Very
thing.
cool. Oh, sorry,
about
I'm
this-
Mr. Technological.
It's all about distribution,
Moving on
right?
up.
It is. No, you're right. That's
You
exactly
got to get it. Let as many listeners as possible.
fantastic. That is fantastic. Corey, your week?
Yeah, great. I'm the most fortunate dude in this room. I am the 5th most handsome person, but that's the second accolade I'd like to mention. I am the most fortunate person in this room, dude. I'm so stoked to be here, and especially I got a chance this week to explain the radio show a couple times, and people asked, what's your show? You're with Rick still? I'm like, yeah. Are you doing the veteran show? Oh, similar, but we have a very, very different path. I'm still very central with the veteran theme, but very, very different path. And it was fun to explain it. It helped me kind of understand what we're doing here by having to surmise to somebody else. So it was a good week for us.
When you were asked that question, what was your response? And similar to what Jim did briefly, what do you believe the mission is?
Yeah, the funny thing is right before the person asked me, we were talking about books we were reading at the time. And I'm subscribed to a service called Read It For Me, which is something listeners can go look up later. It's an awesome service. But we were talking about books, and I said, our radio show is basically like the book you're reading that you feel is going to better yourself. That's why you're reading it. It's basically like getting to go to lunch with the author and ask them, what did you mean by this? What did you do with this? How did this affect you? How can I implement this? That's what our show is. You have somebody who's successful here in Hawaii, all over the world. You have a bunch of people who are following in that loom and trying to weave themselves into that pattern and learn from that. And everybody on this island and everybody now nationally who can listen to SoundCloud has the ability to access that. But for people here locally, it's that much more potent because Hawaii is a different animal. We're operating and dominating in this sphere. And it's a great way to get into that and to learn from that. And it goes along with everything that this family puts out, which is just give. This is the give. When nobody's earning money being here for an hour, it's literally to give to the community and show the true heart of conscious capitalism.
We had an opportunity, Jim and I, to have a chat last Friday in the morning because it was post PBN fastest growing 50. And I thank you for taking the time to do that.
Of course.
The reason why I find it important is because it is an affirmation of everything that we discuss. It's not about the ranking. It's the fact that there's a recognition that what you tell us and educate us about, people, process, etc., is so accurate. And I love that. And that's why I'm so happy that so many people are coming together. Remind us briefly the importance of this accolade, but it is also on the heels of many others that affirm your mission.
The Fastest 50 was a recognition of the companies that are up-and-comers in the marketplace. They choose the overall growth over a 3-year period. We haven't been in business for 3 years with this demographic. We've been in business 8 months, and in 18 months, we were able to rise to number 23 in the state. We had, I think it was 161% revenue growth in our first year, and we're on track to do about 483% revenue growth in 2018. Our goal and mission is to employ veterans, right? So when people identify what we're doing, we use different business opportunities to employ veterans, and we look for those models to create those opportunities for young veterans and that transition when they exit service into a seamless transition into the economy. So that's our overall objective. And we practice conscious capitalism, which is be good, do no harm to yourself, the environment, or others. And under those principles, we kick some butt.
No doubt about it.
Yeah. One of our models was do no self.
Just to clarify, so the 483% that he said, that's where we're at today. So we're projected to hit over 1,000% growth.
Projection of over 1,000%.
Yeah. I wanted to be accurate of where we are today, sitting here right now.
I understand, but that is just incredible. Corey, you were saying?
Oh, no, I was typing on with what they were saying.
Yeah.
Kind of ridiculous, which is what I think people are looking for. They're looking for outliers to follow. Nobody's following extra medium.
Well, what I'm looking for is, we got a general community of small business. We have 85% of all businesses are small businesses, and they all have a prescriptive set of problems. They're all trying to do the same thing. And what we do is we chronicle those, we discuss those, and we talk about how to adapt and to overcome, how to deal with objections, how to deal with setbacks, and how we do it. And then hopefully they can learn from our approach and apply that to their situation and improve their business.
There is a massive percentage of small business failure.
Sure.
Those who begin a business and those who find themselves out of business. There are several reasons that are articulated that are brought together. Because of time, let me just take this so we can expand on that, if you don't mind.
Sure.
We can address some of those. Andrew, how do we keep in touch? How do we listen in on your new platforms,
so
brother?
You listen in on SoundCloud, Spotify, makerofkings.com, and you can find us at our Facebook channel.
Excellent. It's going to be a heck of a segment. Now, if you want to jump in, 521-8383. That is our telephone number in studio. But we'll get back together with MOK. Yes. Maker of Kings, right here on News Radio 830 KHVH and way beyond, where you can join us. Tune in and be a part of it. Go to makerofkings.com and you'll learn more about where you can go. By the way, our Maker of Kings program is also podcast and on our website at khvhradio.com. We also have it online on Facebook with Facebook Live, but also you can log into Twitter at KHVH Radio and also on all of our social media sites. All right, it's a delight to be with you. Now, earlier, Jim, you introduced your younger son who is in studio with us, and what would you like to share about him before we jump in?
Nicholas, a young Army veteran who was exiting the service, was basically one of the prototypes of what we were looking for. A young man, combat engineer, combat-proven superstar, looking to get out and to find his way into the real world as far as how he's going to take care of his family. he integrated right into our business model, started out in the field as a technician, going through the struggles there, promoted into the estimating role, and he's looking to take his brother's spot when we go take the show on the road. So it's a family affair. He's doing very well, and we're excited to have him on the show.
Tremendous. Nicholas, thanks so very much for joining us. Aloha to you.
Thanks for having me, Rick.
I just want to let our listeners know that we are going to address causes of business failures and how MOK can address, assist, and expand on all of this. But again, that great introduction, and we appreciate you being with us. Share a little bit about your military service. What was the catalyst? What drew you to serve in the military?
So when I was younger, I tried doing my own thing for a little bit, and it wasn't working out for me. So I decided to join the military to get that structure. My wife ended up being pregnant. We're having a kid. So I joined. It helped me out a lot. It made me grow, gave me discipline, which I needed a lot. Gave me that structure. I served 5.5 years. I just recently got medically retired from the Army. And so then my dad presented this opportunity for me, and I capitalized on it.
Right. When you serving with fellow veterans and making that transition out, whether it's independent or whether it's out of necessity, what is a commonality between you and others who are transitioning from the military into the private sector? What did you find perhaps a little bit challenging, and what is commonplace amongst veterans?
What I found most challenging was, I'm used to waking up 5 in the morning every morning, doing PT, doing all that stuff, and then as soon as I get out, it changes. It's on your own now, and so, I found common ground with my buddy Jordan, who works with us now. He was my best friend. We served together, we deployed together, so me and him had that relationship. So it kind of made it easier as soon as we were together.
Right. First of all, thank you very much for serving and being a part of our nation's defense. It is so much appreciated. Now let's talk about working and career. What did you have in mind? What was your objective at the very beginning of this process for you?
So just, to know every role of the company. So like I said, I started out as a technician. I didn't have too much experience, but I did learn a lot. And then I moved into the office, was doing like call center or whatnot. Then my dad presented me the opportunity of being the lead estimator. So now I'm lead estimator of our service side, and I lead 2 estimators right now.
What was it like for you to make those incremental changes? Was it based on performance? Was it based on pure expansion? How did those transitions happen for you?
I would say pure expansion.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to turn you down for just a moment because I know that it's critical that there is an expertise that is associated with each role that you have in your company.
Sure. Well, we have clearly identified roles and responsibilities. And so when we transition somebody into that, we develop a scope of work, we develop a task list associated with that scope of work, and that's what we work with those technicians on. Once they exceed that, then we move them into the next phase of the process, which is understanding the estimating aspect of it. Once they master the estimating aspect of it, which is a lot of customer service, it's a lot of estimating, it's very technical in some senses, then they work into the business development side. And so in line with what we're going to discuss later, business development, which is the primary reason small businesses go out of business, we run these guys through a series of skill sets in order to they have the diversity in the marketplace so that each one can fill another position in the event that somebody else goes down. The next guy can step up. So for example, if we had a gentleman in the field go down, Nicholas could come out of the office, go right into the field and fill that role. And so we cross-train all of our people to make sure that we have the diversity, flexibility, and in our business, we call that agility.
Agility. Excellent word. Excellent indeed. I'm going to ask a little bit of assessment, if you wouldn't mind, Andrew, and that has to do about working with your younger brother. But what are the similarities amongst other veterans as they come into the fold? What was common or perhaps even uncommon about Nicholas?
They all had the same characteristics, meaning they know how to work in a team. They're working cohesive units like he did. They like to take challenges, so he was up for every challenge that's been presented his way, just like all the other guys. So that was what brought them all together and brought it pretty close.
Yeah.
And like the brotherhood aspect that they faced in the service.
Right.
Made him connect to all the other veterans that came through.
Now, the beautiful part is that you have not a competitive bone in your body. So I am certain, right, Corey? Is that
No, the muscles are competitive. The bone is just there to support them.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Gotcha. The dynamic of working with your younger brother. Can you explain?
Oh, it's fun. Well, so because of work, so he's in the office, doing estimates, going out doing field estimates, and I'm on the business development getting work, so these guys could do estimates.
Right.
So up to date, there hasn't been a tremendous amount of interaction, but more and more as I'm in the office more, working on optimization, we spend a lot more time together.
Right.
It's nice.
Yeah.
It's cool to have the common
Excellent.
bond. We're doing the same. This is the first time ever throughout history that we've find something to do together. When it comes to sports, I've been 4 years older than him, so I've always competed at a different level. But now this is the first time we're joint together to work towards a common goal.
Right.
And Rick, after
Tremendous.
talking with you for a long enough period of time, I
Yes.
think you were hinting at something the way you so nonchalantly do. When you asked a question a little bit earlier, you said, "How did you get promoted to the field appraisal? Is it optimization? Is it growth?" And you were kind of hinting at, "Hey, everybody's family. How did you get promoted?" And I think the real key to that is a lot of people will wonder those questions when talking about working with family, like we did in the previous episodes last week and the week prior. But really, I think from a customer, as I am of this company as well, you see it's actually putting the right people in the right place. And that was one of the most valuable things Jim's ever told me is if you take the number 10 team at a certain sport, you put them up against the number 1 team. Number 1 team has to all play different positions, but the number 10 team can play their own position. And I'm going to slaughter this in front of the author. I'm going to kill your baby pig. If you put the number 10 team up against the number 1 team, the number 1 team has to play out of position. Quarterbacks playing, defense, that kind of thing. The number 10 team is going to win because they're in position. And the key to that anecdote is having the right people in the right positions. Spotting talent is, to me, the number 1 reason I think people take the leadership roles they take is they have the ability to pick the talent. Like one of our friends, Tony Diaz, in a larger scale. Jim does that on a very large scale. Putting somebody like Nick in that position was just an extension of that. Nick has the calmness that you want when people are frantic, calling about deals and calling about things that need to be done. He's got the confidence. He's 100% in alignment with the company's goals and vision. He understands where it is and where it's going, and that's a projection into the community. So I think it's the answer to your question from a customer standpoint, working with Nick, is that it was the right person in the right position.
You stated again, the employment of veterans is central. Nick, where do you see your company employing veterans? What is going to be the key to bring more veterans into the fold?
Just to tell them, it's not a normal job. We're all a family. Not everybody's treated like an employee. Everybody has an input on the company. So a lot of people get out of the military, they go to a normal job, and people look at them weird, say they have PTSD or something. They get treated differently, but that's not how it is in our family. Everybody's the same. Everybody communicate. Everybody can talk about their feelings together. So it's a brotherhood still. So I think that will, pull the military more as they see that.
What do you foresee the future of your role with the company?
I see my future as operating my own company, own franchise, actually.
Excellent. Would that be something you would do here at home, or would you take it somewhere else?
I would probably take somewhere else.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Any idea at this point where that might be?
Northwest.
Northwest.
Yes, sir.
Excellent. Wow, this is a young man who
Easy.
has it. He's got it all
Figured out.
Mapped
covered
out.
up. I love that.
Yeah.
That's tremendous.
And back to what Corey was saying about
Yeah.
putting the right positions. So back when I was a kid, I experienced it. So my dad was our coach in football, right? We had the smallest team, not the biggest team. Didn't have the best players, but he knew how to put us in the right position. And so we were champions for 2 years in a row. So that kind of explains the systems and processes.
I love that. Love that.
Yeah.
Nick, we're going to come back to you. MOK, we're going to be back in just a moment. What a great first half hour of this program. Go to makerofkings.com. You'll be able to keep up with us. We'll keep up with Maker of Kings. I bill it as the most compelling hour of radio, and it never falls short. Just in our first 30 minutes, being up to speed with Maker of Kings. You're dialed in together. Glad you're with us here. Couple of things, and we're going to get into businesses, failures, etc. Jim, if you wouldn't mind, I want to go through a couple of things that pertains to your constitution that can be applied to all those that are not only in the room, but that are listening now. And you bring up a couple of things that you address that are so important. It permeates throughout our society. Entitlement. There's a sense of it. There's an expectation of it. There's a sense I deserve. In your constitution, you address entitlement. What do you say?
I'm not entitled to be successful, and that I'm responsible for myself, my family, my financial situation, and everything that happens to me. that's just personal ownership in my own situation. And that, like I said before, it's not anybody's responsibility to take care of my family but me. And it's not anybody's responsibility to take care of me but me. I appreciate all the support I get, but at the end of the day, I came into this world by myself, right? And I have to do everything in my power to be an independent, self-sufficient entity where I'm not causing other undue stress on everybody else because I can't pull my own weight. So I have to meet and exceed my own expectations for myself, and then I ask others to share me in that goal.
Excellent. Drew, I'm going to come over to you. In the generation that you work with, do you sense that there is generationally a difference between, I'll put your dad and myself in the same generational class, but with those who are of yours and perhaps even a little younger?
Absolutely. There's a huge sense of entitlement.
Yeah. How does that manifest itself? How do you identify it? How is it expressed?
Well, it's too easy. If you make things too easy and you take it away and people don't like it, then they'll drag their feet. This is the easiest time ever to be successful. We were just talking about it. So in my professional world, I've never had to go through a recession, right? So all I know is the market being as good as it is, but it's on the downturn. And so it's going to sort itself out real soon, isn't it?
Oh yeah, the bubble's here. Yeah, of course.
Yikes.
It's fun to hear that with conviction.
No, with certainty.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
It's just fact. It's just fact, right? And the thing is people don't plan for that. We just briefly spoke of margin for error, right?
Yeah.
When you're looking at these business plans and people are coming up with these ideas to run businesses, they're not ruling in any margin of error. They believe that everything's going to go as prescribed and it's going to go A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and that's not how it's going to happen. There's hiccups along the way. It's mostly identified in the planning phase, but some of that sorts itself out in the execution phase. So when you're going through these processes, it's really important that you rule in a margin of error, that you understand that that's part of the process, and that you have to rule that in the planning phase.
But that is, and coming back to it, listed by numerous publications that say one of the primary reasons for business failure is lack of planning.
Correct.
But what is the correlation between pragmatism and emotion and how it affects that?
Well, it's the ground truth. You got to get actionable intelligence to make decisions. And most of the time, people go with what they believe rather than what they can prove. So the market decides who wins and loses, and people think that they can manipulate the market, and that has never worked. So in our sense, what we look at is developing the size and value of the market, understanding your market, understanding the size of the market, understanding the value of the market, reversing that out to develop your marketing strategy to go after 10, 20%, whatever your target is. That revenue targeting helps you have a laser-like focus on a specific objective. You then identify an action plan and a critical path to achieve that goal, and then you execute. When you execute, you measure those results, you improve those results, and then you re-execute. And through this process of plan, do, review, you vet out the systems and processes that make you successful. So there's no secret other than executing a proper plan. That's the secret. And what most people don't understand is without proper planning, without the right players in place, you can't get there. And then you start acting on your dreams, your thoughts, your ideas, rather than an actionable game plan that's been thoroughly vetted.
If you don't mind, I'm going to go to Corey for a moment and share with us the perspective from when you began as an entrepreneur and now having worked alongside partnering with Jim and the team. What's the differentiation from where you were to where you are now?
It's a very hard question to define down, but what I will say is that the difference is that I know that I was wanting to be an entrepreneur and I was doing well in what I was doing, but I wasn't accessing the parts that I needed to truly be an entrepreneur. I think there's a lot of self-evaluation that has to happen to actually consider yourself a true entrepreneur. You have to be vulnerable. You have to be open. Otherwise, you're going to bounce against the greatest mentor you ever could have, and you're not going to get anything if you think you have it all figured out. So a lot of it was self-evaluation for me and realizing that there was, a point where I thought, oh man, I'm doing great, have my own company, have, 15 employees, have, when realistically, a lot of that was because, like they said, the market was good. The timing was good. A lot of things happened right despite myself. So it's learning to correct those things before you need to. That was the biggest eye opener for me. Adjusting business plans, adjusting goals, adjusting whatever the heck you're actually doing before the time's needed when, whatever you want to call it, the bubble pops, the recession hits, the market turns the next cycle, whatever you want to term it to make yourself feel comfortable. Being prepared ahead of time was a big eye opener for me. And adjusting those things I needed to adjust was really my major lesson I pulled out of this.
Excellent job. So what do we say, Drew and Jim? What do we say to folks dialed in right now about planning? What can they walk away with today that will assist them the most?
I think it's an honest self-assessment of your skill sets and your resources and your goals, right? It's an honest self-assessment. Ask yourself the difficult questions, and then look at your key players that you have around you and ask them those questions and make sure that you have alignment. I think you would include other people's perspective in your decision-making process. Whether you take their information, their opinion or not, you still should include them in, because it's the person you don't listen to that could change your life. It's that one person.
And there's no perfect plan, and do not fall in love with your plan. That's the biggest issue.
Exactly.
Our plan has changed and deviated because we're so new. We don't even know what we could really be, right? So we're always deviating all the time.
So let me touch on that, on the
go ahead,
deviation.
please.
Okay, so we build agility into our planning for that very purpose, right? So for example, we know what best practices are in the market. We know exactly the way that the best practices are prescribed and how to execute them. And what we find is, with our whole philosophy of continual improvement, we measure these plans, and then we say, well, how can we improve it by 5%? How can we improve it by 10%? And so we're taking the best practices in the industry and we're identifying how to improve them 5-10%. Well, if you focus on that improvement on a regular basis, we find that the best practices aren't really best practices. They're good practices, they're standards, but they're not where we need to be. And so what we've done is we've consistently pivoted to improve the effectiveness and the efficiency. Both are two different meanings of these plans. And so we consistently pivot to improve. And we say 1% better every day, every way. So at the end of 1 week, we should be 5% better, and we should be able to have measurable success to show what 5% improvement looks like in every segment in our business.
I'd like to point out that you said 1 week would be 5% better. That's insinuating that everybody there doesn't work on Saturday and Sunday. So I think those numbers are padded for.
I'm being generous with
There you
5.
go.
I expect more, but I'll take 5%.
Yeah. All right. Drew, do you find that in practice, because you are at the center point of the businesses in your group? When you have your conversations with your team, is it quantifiable? And if you reach it, what's the message? If you don't reach it, what's the message?
Well, it's definitely quantifiable. And so it's, without having those expectations laid out on where we're at, you have no way to measure your progress, right? So we lay out, this is where we're at, this is where we need to be. You're not cutting the mustard. You're not. And then we have to give them a critical path on how to do it. You can't just say, this is what you need, theoretically you need to do this and you'll get this. You actually have to set out a critical path on how to achieve those goals. Step by step. If you leave room for them to think and figure it out, then you'll never achieve it.
Right. So planning at the heart, but I'm going to step back for just a little bit in reviewing what are the primary reasons why businesses fail. There's one that's at the top of most lists. You start a business for the wrong reasons.
Sure.
What does that mean, Jim?
Well, you start a business. I'll give you an example. So let's say you're a great mechanic and you're doing a great job and you think that you could be a great auto service owner. You could own your own store, right? So this is classic. So the best mechanic who's doing very well as a mechanic decides, I'm going to open my own shop. So they go out and they open their own shop. The first thing they do is they don't go and become a mechanic. They go and open a shop. They incur all this debt. They get this money. And then they hire a mechanic who's not as good as a mechanic as them.
They are.
And then they try to be a service manager or a service advisor when they know nothing about being a service manager or about being a service advisor, nor about how to hire, how to train, how to develop systems and processes for the technician, because they're actually a great technician. They're a great mechanic. So they open their store, they get a substandard mechanic. They're trying to be a service manager. The substandard mechanic isn't as good as they are. So they're less effective. Then the person who's actually a great technician is being a service manager, but they're not a very good service manager because they're actually a great technician. And so you put people out of position, which is what Nicholas was talking about earlier. Put the wrong player in the wrong position, you don't get the outcome you're looking for. And they're going, well, why aren't you? Because you got the wrong player in the wrong position. Take the best quarterback, put him at wide receiver, and watch how he runs routes. He's horrible. It's the same thing in business. So if the smart decision would have been to go be a technician and hire a service manager, that's superstar, right? And let that person do their job very well. You can be the technician doing your job very well, and you guys can work together and you would probably win. But in majority of the businesses, they have the wrong people playing the wrong position and they don't execute effectively. And the reason is they don't have measurable targeted goals. They have dreams, ideas, admirations. They think that I'm going to do this. I want to be like this guy. I want to do that. And at the end of the day, understand the size and value of the market. understand how to target your people effectively. Where does your customers congregate? How do you find those customers, and how do you give that customer an offer they can't refuse?
But that, and I'm back to the pragmatism versus emotion,
Sure.
because the reason why you're starting that own business, you're satisfying that desire when it's not broached by the practical side.
Sure.
Do I know what the hell I'm doing?
Sure.
Do I know how to do this? That doesn't matter, because it's my hope, it's my dream, it's what I've always wanted.
Sure.
And that supersedes, unfortunately, the
Which is
practical
why
side.
we'll be most successful in these trades, is because we get into the market. Every plumber who's ever been a plumber says, I'm going to have my own plumbing company, right? But it's still a small business, and you got to be a small business, and you got to be an entrepreneur, regardless of you being a great plumber. I'm a horrible plumber, but we own a plumbing company, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know anything about plumbing, nor do I need to, because I have people that's all they know is plumbing.
Mm-hmm.
Anything you want to know about plumbing, they have the answer. Me, I know where to find the customers, and I know how to connect the dots.
Yeah, excellent. Nick, I'm going to come to you before we take our break, and that is the preparation with your objective, as you told us before, of being a franchise entrepreneurial owner. What is going through your process now to make preparations for some of the things that we've chatted about thus far?
So just learning my position now. So like I told you, my long-term goal, my short-term goal right now is, like I said, I'm a lead estimator.
Mm-hmm.
I need to be able to train 1,000 estimators. I need to be able to travel around the country. The new franchise that opened, I need to be able to teach that.
Yeah.
So.
But there's also all the other elements that you'll be responsible for because of that position as being the owner. So it sounds like you're embracing exactly what Jim had talked about. That is, know your role, find others to fill the critical ones that you may not have that direct expertise in. Yeah. It can't be easy sometimes.
Well, it's understanding the technician,
You
right?
really
So if
have
you're
to-
put in position to be a punter, you focus on punting, right?
Yeah.
Now, you're not concerned about quarterback. You're not concerned about game plan. You're not concerned about personnel. As you transition through the phase, so you start as a technician, then you work into management, then you work into leadership, and then you work into entrepreneurship, and then you're a rainmaker at the top. If you're a rainmaker, your job is to make sure it rains so everything else gets watered, right? So the entrepreneur has different skill sets. The manager has different skill sets. The leader has different skill sets. The technician has different skill sets. And so Nicholas is in the process of becoming an effective technician in 2 different sects. So he has 2 different skill sets that are both transferable. Once he does that, then he transitions into the next step, and he'll learn that step. And it's through this step-by-step process that he'll be an effective entrepreneur.
But that's also given that you have folks who are dialed in right now, that they do have a team.
Mhm.
There are some, they're mom and pop. It's maybe 1, 2, 3, 4 at the most.
Mhm.
How do they achieve with that small number and having diversified responsibilities that you need to have expertise in order to succeed?
Roles and responsibilities, right? Set clear, specific goals and targets. Make sure that the buy-in is with everybody. Make sure that they have the ability to succeed. Whoever the leader of that team is, make sure that they're responsible for the tools, the training, the resources, and support of their men or women, and making sure that they have access to everything they need to be successful, and then get out of their way and let them do it.
Maker of Kings is on right now, and I can tell when things are going well because we're behind on our break, which means we'll take care of that right now. And Maker of Kings is found right here every Wednesday at this time during the 9 o'clock hour. And listen, it is guaranteed every single week you're going to walk away knowing something, learning something, and being inspired on topics and issues that affect us all. A lot of focus on business. Before we go, we've been touching upon some of the things of why businesses fail. I'm just going to throw a couple other things out: poor management, insufficient capital, location, overextension. These are other elements that are contained within. But really, at the heart of it, for those who are listening right now, and they are finding themselves in a struggle, a lot of outward projection. Well, it's the politics of the economy. Well, it's all of this. Can you talk to individual entrepreneurs, business people that might be having a challenge, and what would you say to them to turn it around And we'll start with Corey. If you don't
Yeah,
mind.
if we can, I'll go backwards in our conversation, back to something you mentioned earlier. Say a small mom and pop, 3 or 4 people doing something. Where are they? What kind of self-analysis could they look at themselves in the mirror and judge? I would say for them to preserve themselves from being what you just labeled as a failed business, maybe growth's not the thing you need to be focusing on. We talked about it last week with Drew and Rich bringing up the fact that they're in a position of optimizing right now. Yes, we have the ability to grow. Yes, we have the ability to become bigger. But right now, we're making sure that we're optimized at the size that we're at. So maybe how can we keep these 3 or 4 people growing might not be the question. The question is, do we need these 3 or 4 people? Can one person be used better in another spot? So looking at yourself honestly and analyzing your situation without the lens of growth might be the best way to take care of your family business.
One of the number one failures, as my dad will point out, for young entrepreneurs is scaling too soon. They don't have the metrics or the analytics to suggest that they're ready for expansion. They're just like, oh, market share. I think somebody else might open up a gym or a restaurant, so I should do it. There's no real thought put into it. So if you haven't optimized your current situation, how are you going to expand upon it?
Yeah, I say stabilize first, optimize second, and understand the power of no. The power of no will save you a lot. And most people don't understand, and they don't have the ability to say no. They say yes, yes, yes. And we've had several opportunities where a large customer comes on and they provide us with a tremendous opportunity, and we tell them no. And people say, well, why in the world would you ever tell them no? Because that one customer is large, and the demand that they have could upset our apple cart and could convolute our situation. So proper leadership would say no. Someone who's really money motivated and don't understand the actual goal would say yes. And our goal is to employ veterans. It's not to make the most amount of money in the shortest amount of time. And so what I look at is stabilize, grow, stabilize, optimize, grow, go through this process. And so it's prescriptive growth rather than just market reaction. And you don't want to find yourself in a reactionary state. You want to respond. And so it has to be as prescribed, scheduled growth. And I think the one question that I would tell young entrepreneurs and small business to ask themselves is, what one decision, if made today, can make the biggest improvement in the shortest amount of time?
Excellent.
What about creating an exit strategy?
That's next.
Yeah. That's a next
Oh, because there's some fads and businesses that only have a lifespan of 6 to 8 years.
Trends. Yeah.
Trends. This is it. But you can capitalize in that 6 to 8 years, but what's your way out? Sell it before it's done,
Right.
That's a powerful question when you get it from somebody else. What change, if you made today, would have the greatest impact? I would challenge our listeners today, when we talk about reflection, I would challenge our listeners today, set yourself an alarm for tomorrow at 6 o'clock in the morning and let it wake you up and title that alarm, What Change We've Made? Because Jim texted me that. My thumbs broke. I just, like a cartoon. I was like, oh, crud. I challenge you to ask yourself that question.
Excellent way for us to depart. We want to give mad props. Nick, thanks so very much for being with us, and look forward to seeing you again on the program. Drew, brother, mahalo nui.
I'll see you tomorrow.
Yes, we will.
Aloha, brother.
Aloha, Jim. Thanks so very much for everything.
My pleasure.
Brother Corey.
Brother Rick.
I love you, boys. I love this show, and I thank you, our most my friends, for being with us. makerofkings.com. Thanks to Jess. Thanks to you. We'll see you next time.
KHVH Honolulu.